Good morning, sir. My name is Alan J. Castro Jr. and today I will be reporting about nationalism and patriotism. So the basic concept of nationalism and patriotism. So first is the nationalism. So nationalism is an ideology movement defined by promoting the interest of a particular nation. In particular in in particular with the aim of acquiring and maintaining the nation's sovereignty over its country of origin. Smith 2010. Nationalism claims that each nation should regulate itself free from outside intervention, that a nation is a natural and ideal political basis, and that the nation is the only legitimate source of political authority. It also aims to build and maintain a single national identity based on the shared social characteristics such as culture, language, religion, politics, and beliefs, and distinctive history, and promote national unity or solidarity. Nationalism therefore seeks to preserve and encourage a nation's traditional culture, and cultural revivals have been connected to nationalistic movement. It also fosters pride in domestic accomplishments, and it's strongly associated with the patriotism. Nationalism is often paired with other ideologies, for instance, conservatism or socialism. Types of nationalism. Nationalism can be expressed by along civil, ethnic, cultural, religious, or ideological lines. This self-definition of countries are used to classify distinct kinds of nationalism. Although these categories are not mutually exclusive, in many nationalist movements combine to differing degrees some or all of these components. 1. Ethnic nationalism or ethno-nationalism. The country is described from the prior generations in terms of ethnicity and descent. It also involves the concept of the shared cultural among group members and generally a shared language. The nation's membership, it's hereditary. The state derives political legitimacy from its status as the ethnic group homeland, and from its obligation and safeguard the particular domestic group, and as a group to promote its family and social life. In contrast to Western opinion of a country defined by its geographical territory. Theorist Anthony D. Smith utilized the word ethnic nationalism for non-Western nations of nationalism. The word ethno-nationalism is used only in relation to nationalists who support an explicit ideology along these lines. The more generic word is ethnic nationalism, and is used by nationalists who hold such views in an informal, instinctive, or unsystematic manner. The pejorative type of both is ethnocentric nationalism or tribal nationalism. Although tribal nationalism may have a non-pejorative significance when debating African, Native African, or the other nationalism that publicly claim a tribal identity. So the second one is civic nationalism. The state derives from political legitimacy from its citizen active involvement and the extent to which it reflects the will of the individuals. Civic nationalism lies within the traditions or rationalism and liberatism, but it is contrasted with ethnic nationalism as a type of nationalism. Civic nation membership is regarded to be voluntary. The growth of representative democracy in nations such as the United States and France was affected by civil national values. State nationalism, often coupled with ethnic nationalism, is a version of civic nationalism. It means that the country is a community of those who contribute to the state's maintenance and strength, and thus there is a person to contribute to that object. The country is supposed to be a community of those who contribute to the state maintenance and strength, and where the person exists expressly in the society contribute to that objective. This often results in the fascism, generally characterized by authoritarianism and nationalism, fascism, and a political ideology. And the third one is expansionist nationalism, a radical form of imperialism that includes independent patriotic feelings with a faith and expansion generally through military aggression. The word was coined in the late 19th century as the European powers indulged with the scramble of African in the name of domestic glory, but was most closely linked with the militarist government in the 20th century, including fascist Italy, Nazi Germany, and the Japanese Empire, and the Balkan nations of Albania, Bulgaria, Croatia, and Hungary. Nations are not believed to be equivalent to their right to self-determination. Some countries are believed to possess features or qualities that make them superior to others. Therefore, expansionist nationalism argues the right from the state to expand its boundaries at the cost of its neighbors. Romantic nationalism. It is otherwise known as the organic nationalism and identity nationalism. It's the form of ethnic nationalism in which the state derives political legitimacy as a result and expression of the nation's natural. It is based on the presence of a historical culture that meets the romantic ideal. It expresses romanticism, values, and opposes the rationalism of enlightenment. A historical ethnic culture that meets the romantic ideal was emphasized by romantic nationalism. Folklore involved as romantic nationalism notion. Cultural nationalism. The country is described by shared culture, not solely civic or ethnic. Chinese nationalism is an instance of cultural nationalism, partly due to China many national minorities. Membership in the nation is neither completely voluntary or hereditary. However, a traditional culture can be more readily integrated into the lives of many persons, particularly if the person who can obtain his or her abilities at an early point of his or her own lives. Cultural nationalism has been defined as the variety of non-civil or ethnic nationalism. So the sixth one is the third world nationalism. So it has only a brief definition. Nationalist feelings are the outcome of the opposition to colonial rule, survive and maintain a domestic identity. So the seventh one is the liberal nationalism. It's a kind of nationalism lately defended by political philosophers who think that a non-xenophobic form of nationalism compatible with liberal values of liberty, tolerance, equality, and individual rights can exist. It is asserted that in order to lead meaningful independent life, people need a national identity, and those liberal democracies need domestic identity to work correctly. Liberal nationalists often defend the importance of domestic identity by stating that people need a domestic identity to lead meaningfully independent life, and a liberal democratic politics need domestic identity to work correctly. David, 1995, Arash, 2002. Ernest Renan, author of Cohesion, and John Stuart Mill are often thought to be early liberal nationalists. So number 8 is the religious nationalism. Nationalism connection to a specific religious faith, church, or affiliation. It can be seen that a Shared religion contributes to a sense of domestic unity and a mutual bond between the nation's people. This connection can be divided into two dimensions: religion politicization and religion's converse effects on politics. In the former aspect, it can be seen as the shared religion contributes to a sense of domestic unity, a common bond between the nation's people. The support of a national identity comparable to a shared ethnicity, language, or culture is another political element of religion. More ideological is the impact of the religion on politics. Where present interpretation of religious concepts inspire political activism and actions. For instance, legislation are enacted to encourage stricter religious adherence. Number 9 is pan-nationalism. Ethnic or cultural nationalism refers to a country that itself is a cluster of associated ethnic and cultural communities, such as Turkish people. So these are the example, the Turkish people. And number 10 is diaspora nationalism. Diaspora is an ethnic population residing outside their traditional homelands. In this type of nationalism, there is nationalist sense. Example, the Irish in the United States, the Jews in the United States and elsewhere, etc. Number 11 is the stateless nationalism. On nationalist basis, the Catalans and the Basques in Spain, an ethnic or cultural minority within a nation-state, aim independence. Number 12 is the national conservatism, a political term mainly used in Europe to describe a version of conservatism that focuses more on domestic interests than conventional conservatism, while not being unduly nationalist or pursuing a far-right agenda. Number 13 is the revolutionary nationalism. Revolutionary nationalism is an ideological theory that calls for a domestic group united by a shared sense of intent and destiny. Also known as the radical nationalism, it was first ascribed and strongly promulgated by Benito Mussolini to followers of revolutionary syndicalism. In France and Italy, at the start of the 20th century, this intellectual synthesis of radical nationalism in dissident society was created. So number 14, last but not the least, is the left-wing nationalism. Left-wing nationalism, also sometimes referred to as the socialist nationalism, relates to any political movement combining left-wing or socialism with nationalism. Notable examples including the 26th July movement of the Fidel Castro. This launched the Cuban Revolution in 1959 to oust the American-backed Fulgencio Batista. Ireland's Sinn Féin, Israel's Labor Zionism, and the African National Congress. So the next we will going to report is the patriotism. So first we will define the meaning of patriotism. Patriotism, or the national pride, is a sense of love, dedication, and attachment to a country and an alliance with the other people who share the same impression. These attachments can be mixture of any distinct emotion, including ethnic, cultural, political, and historical elements related to one's own country. It is a predominant virtue linked to a nation's love, with a greater emphasis on values and beliefs. One who is patriotic will be willing to offer any sacrifice to his nation. He never live alone egotistically. For example, for the sake of his country, a soldier makes the ultimate sacrifice of his life, for no other reason than being a citizen of that nation. Patriotism is the dedication to one's nation. In sense, patriotism, a sense of attachment and dedication to country, nation, or political community, or just country love. The England word patriot is the first known in the Elizabethan period. It is originated from Latin 16th century patriota via Middle French meaning countryman. Finally from Greek patriotes means from the same nation, patris meaning fatherland. Liddell and Scott 2013. The abstract noun patriotism appears in the early 18th century. By the adhering to a nation, religion, patriotism can be reinforced. This is the reverse of a church-state separated requested by the Enlightenment intellectuals who saw patriotism and religion as the analogues in opposing forces. Michael Billig and Jen Betke Elshtan both asserted that it is hard to discern the distinction between patriotism and faith and depends heavily on the attitudes of a person who does the label. So these are the kinds of patriotism. So there are three kinds of patriotism. Number one is the patriotism of duty. This includes fidelity to one's nation through material acts. This military service patriotism and other selfless sacrifice types. This is where patriotism becomes embodied in its ideas, takes praiseworthy particular actions. Number 2, patriotism of affection. This is the patriotism of the heart. It is about the one's internal desire for his country's well-being. The patriotism of affection can be seen in the patriotism of duty, but is that not necessary result in it? One can truly love his country and yet be a coward. Just as one theoretically fulfilled with a patriotic duty and yet feel apathetic about the country welfare. 3. Patriotism of manners. This is a customs patriotism, written and unwritten. The patriotism of manners is to place one's hand over the heart during the nation's anthem. It can be performed by anyone without actually needing affection or duty patriotism. While the above types of patriotism show, at least in part, the real beliefs and hopes of a person, the patriotism of manners established mostly a set of protocols. So the next one is the type of patriotism. So these are the types of patriotism. Personal patriotism is the emotional and voluntary. The patriot adheres to certain patriotic values, such as respect for the flag or honoring of veterans. Other expression of personal patriotism including enlisting in the army, public service, and the participation in the political process through voting or other forms of activism. Number 2, official patriotism, promoted by the government, which has a high symbolic and ceremonial content. It is a logical consequence of the state itself. It derives legitimacy from being the expression of the common good of the political community. National monuments and Veterans Days and commemoration ceremonies are typically examples. Often, officials' patriotism is highly regulated by protocol, with specific methods for handling flags or specific pledge and displays of elegance. Official patriotism relies heavily on symbolic acts such as displaying the flag, singing the national anthem, saying a pledge, participating in a mass rally, placing a patriotic bumper sticker on one's vehicle, or any other way of publicly proclaiming allegiance to the state. Number 3 is the symbolic patriotism. It is thwarting intended to raise moral, in turn contributing to the war effort. Number 4 is the peacetime patriotism. Cannot be so easily linked to a measurable gain for the state, but the patriot does not see it as inferior. Levels of patriotism varies across times and among political communities. Typically, patriot intensity or higher when the state is under external threat. So that's all for my 20 minutes video.